welcome to In Touch with Durham County. I'm Deborah Craig-Ray, General Manager of Strategic Planning and Innovation. Thanks to Zoom, here we are socially distancing and bringing you some important information to help you through these times. Our guest for this edition is Ben Rose, Director of Durham County Social Services. He and his agency have been working tirelessly to help our most vulnerable citizens receive much needed services during this coronavirus pandemic. Durham County hired its first ever racial equity officer in 2020. We will introduce you to Kweli Rashied-Henry and share details about her work plan and the impact she's having in our community. Welcome to the show, Ben. We're delighted that you can take time out of your schedule to join us today.
Thank you so much, Deborah. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, I think we can say we've certainly had an interesting year since the pandemic began. Tell us a little bit how your agency transitioned its operations to serve clients.
Well, we had to make a lot of very quick decisions regarding how we serve clients. And the biggest one was we had to go to a contactless type of service, which was really new for DSS. As many of you know, we're about serving people and seeing people in our offices. And we had to close our lobbies and close our offices off to try to prevent the spread of the coronavirus. And that was a big transition for us. But we've been successful in doing this. And we're doing a lot of our services now over the phone or virtually. Or if we have to see people face to face, we're doing it safely.
Yeah, and don't forget, during that same time, we were also hit with a malware attack that impacted our services. So I assume you guys used your continuity of operations plan.
You assume correctly. We did. We had to resort to old-fashioned paper for some of our social workers out in the field. And then in the agency, we were able to establish some pretty much independent work areas. We have a very fortunate relationship and very strong relationship with the state of North Carolina. We were able to get about 150 laptops from them. And that, coupled with some other partners, we had employees stationed throughout other counties and throughout our county to keep those services going while we recover from that attack.
Well, that's really great, because I think you mentioned earlier that, of course, you all are in the business of seeing clients face to face. And I can imagine it was pretty challenging when you had to make that transition.
It was indeed. And two virus attacks at one time made work in DSS very, very challenging, but we've come through it.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm real pleased to hear that our State Health and Human Services Department provided some good guidance.
Very much so. They have provided actually weekly guidance to us during the pandemic, especially for all of our programs, which is an excellent resource.
Mm-hmm. Now, can you share with us perhaps the most significant challenge that your staff experienced while beginning to serve these clients?
Certainly, I would say definitely the most significant challenge was the shift in operations and how we did things more remotely and doing things over the phone, and then the volume of work that we saw. The volume of work just naturally increased when the pandemic hit. That, coupled with doing work in a different way, was a big challenge for our staff, and it took time to get us to a point where we felt comfortable in that space. But we feel like we're there now. We're still providing those services in a remote and virtual way, which is really helping us and helping our clients stay safe and helping our staff stay safe.
Very good. Very good. Now, of course, certain necessities were in high demand as people began to be impacted. People lost their jobs and they just felt that impact significantly. Were food and nutrition allotments expanded during this time?
Yes, they were. We've been very, very happy with the state. They were able to work with the feds to get waivers to not only look at the increase in services that we saw, but increase those allotments and those benefits. Basically, every food and nutrition recipient has been getting the maximum allotment allowed under the policy pretty much since the pandemic started. Mm-hmm. And now with the new coronavirus relief package that was just passed over the holidays, they're actually getting the maximum allotment plus 15%. and that will occur for the next 6 months. So that definitely helps with the food insecurity issues that we see with our households that we serve, and has provided that additional benefit that has just been so needed during these difficult times.
Right. Yeah, because I know food insecurity was certainly an issue before the pandemic.
That's correct.
And I'm really grateful to hear that we're being able to provide more resources in that area.
Indeed.
Yeah, yeah. So how did your agency work with the families of Durham Public Schools to provide assistance?
So we did a lot of communication and outreach with Durham Public Schools. They're one of our most critical partners, and we were constantly communicating with the superintendent and with key staff to ensure that we had access to folks that needed our help, and that we could connect with them, again, via phone, via having them come into our lobby area to fill out applications, whatever we needed to do. We were sharing information, especially through the Durham Directors Group. That's been a big resource for us to get information out to families through our partners and stakeholders. So they have been a key partner through this.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Now, what is the Pandemic EBT program? I've heard that term.
Yes, so Pandemic EBT is a wonderful program. What it has done is it provides a food and nutrition supplement to those students and those households that receive free and reduced school lunch. Mm-hmm. So since they've been out of school, they've not been getting the lunch program at school. This was an EBT card that was basically sent to those families during this time to allow them to purchase food equal to the amount that they would have gotten if they were at the school lunch program. It provided about $4.50 per meal for every day that they missed. And that program has luckily been continued into the new school year. In fact, it's been authorized through June 30th. So since Durham County schools are probably going to be staying in somewhat of a remote work environment, those families will be eligible to continue to receive Pandemic EBT. And that program is done through the state. Social Services supports it, but they actually administer the program and get the benefits to those families.
Well, that's certainly good news indeed.
Excellent news indeed. Yes.
Yeah. So in the early months following the March shutdown, what were the services that were most in need by the community? What was offered to assist them?
I would say food and nutrition obviously was probably the most demanded program. We probably saw about a 250% increase initially in that program, and that's been a continued steady pace. That is the program that's probably easiest to qualify for. We did see some upticks in our Medicaid side of the house and the one positive thing that North Carolina did as well is they did provide Medicaid for COVID testing and COVID-related illnesses. So people that did not have insurance could get their costs covered through Medicaid, and that was automatically done. That was a positive thing as well, too. But definitely the financial side, housing, energy, utilities, this has been the side that's been most impacted with the pandemic.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Now, I know your agency investigates abuse. Have you seen the stress from this pandemic impacting the number of abuse investigations you're called upon to handle?
Well, Deborah, frankly, that's a worry that we have, because with remote schooling, our reports actually have gone down a little bit. The school is one of our biggest partners and one of our biggest reporters of potential child abuse and neglect. And obviously, not having school in session, we've seen a little bit of a decrease in child abuse and neglect reports. Therefore, we really encourage the community to be aware of these issues and to make that report if they suspect there is something going on that needs to be looked at. We definitely know the stress is out there, and domestic violence, substance abuse, those reports are still very much trending in our county, but we are concerned about some underreporting.
Yeah. So I know another area, and you touched on it earlier in this time, we're talking about needing assistance with housing. I mean, I know you're helping families with rents and funds are coming in. And also there have been moratoriums on evictions. I know you're working in that area.
Yes, there's been a lot happening in that area. There is a moratorium on evictions. However, that is a process that is not fully guaranteed to protect someone from a filing, and evictions are still potentially occurring. The moratorium comes through the CDC and basically does fall to the tenant to basically sign a declaration and have that declaration signed with their landlord, agree to continue to pay rent as best they can.
Yeah.
We've had still some issues though with people, filings are still occurring. So we still have to really work hard to try to stem this tide. The rental assistance has been there, and that's been a positive. We've received a lot of federal dollars coming through both the city of Durham and then through the HOPE program, which came to Durham County indirectly. And we've been able to leverage well over $7 million in that area. And we've been trying to get these benefits out to clients as they come in. The HOPE program has closed. We're not taking applications anymore for that program. And it was only open for about an 11-day period. But we received over 2,300 applications. So we've been processing those applications to get those funds out as well. We are looking to secure other potential funding as well, too, because this is a continued real concern and a need in our community for sure.
Well, certainly, we're hopeful that with, the imminent changes coming from our nation's capital, there will be some additional funding coming down.
We hope so, yes, indeed.
Mm-hmm. So I know this time of year, your department also has a federally funded low-income energy assistance program to help eligible households pay the heating bills. Are you seeing people take advantage of these funds?
Yes, we are. We definitely are getting applications there now. And this program is open to the general public at this point as of January 1st. So we encourage you to apply. You can apply online at North Carolina ePass, which keeps it safe. You don't have to come into our agency to access the low-income energy assistance program. That's a new component that we really are proud of. And we definitely encourage people, if they think they may qualify, qualification guidelines are available online. They should review them and consider applying because it can provide assistance, a direct-to-vendor assistance with your heating source.
Great. Now, it sounds like, we have a lot of good programs to help our families that really need the help. How do you publicize these new and traditional services for the community?
That's a great question because obviously we don't have the visitors coming to the agency that we normally have. So that is a harder way to get word out. So we rely, number one, on our website. Mm-hmm. The social services website under Decode is one of the best places to get information about all the current programs that we have. In addition to that, we really rely on our stakeholders and our partners. We work with them to do a lot of communications to get to the people they're serving to help get information out. And then the state of North Carolina is a big partner in this as well, too. Our PIO works very closely with the state, and we coordinate press releases and of course provide those to you as well too to try to get information out that way. The state has been a very good partner in this because a lot of these programs have been generated at their level. So they will send notices out to clients. They will send information out to the public. That does help us. But the website is probably still the best place for information for social services.
Very good. So Ben, we're about out of time. Are there any final thoughts you'd like to share as we conclude?
Well, I would just like to share with the community, thank you for your understanding during these difficult times. We really had to transition our services and do things in a different way. And it's been a learning experience, but we appreciate the patience and understanding that we've gotten from the community and our partners. And we want to continue to serve the residents of Durham County to the best of our ability. So thank you for this opportunity.
Excellent. Well, we certainly appreciate you and your incredible staff for all the work that you do for our community.
Thank you. I'm very proud of my staff. They have been true heroes during this time. So thankful for them. Thank you so much, Deb.
Great. Well, we're going to take a quick break. And when we return, you'll hear from Kweli Rashied-Henry, our first ever racial equity officer. Don't move. We'll see you on the other side.
Hello, I'm Jackie Shelton Green, the North Carolina Poet Laureate. Even in times of despair and hopelessness, there is an opportunity to become better as humans and to build stronger communities. Take care of yourselves and each other. Help by following public health protocols. Knowledge is powerful. Learn and know the facts about COVID-19, its risk, and how you can protect yourselves. Social distancing doesn't mean social isolation, but instead it offers a new way of building community. We have survived through many difficult times, and by adhering to the public health practices to prevent the spread and harm that this virus can create, we will make it through this as well, together. For more facts and information about COVID-19, visit www.nc.gov/COVID-19 or call 211.
Welcome back to More in Touch. We're pleased to be joined by our Racial Equity Officer, Kweli Rashied-Henry. It's great to have you with us today, Kweli.
Thank you so much for having me today, Deborah.
Please tell our viewers a little bit about your work background prior to joining Durham County.
Well, much of my career has been focused on the intersection of health and equity. So before coming to Durham County, I was the National Director of March of Dimes, the National Health Director of March of Dimes, which focuses on improving the health of all moms and babies. And I've worked in different settings across the health spectrum for over the past 20 years, from womb to tomb, right? So in maternal and child health and aging, heart health and HIV/AIDS. And we've made so many advances in health over the years and in medicine that have contributed to, how long we live and the quality of life that we have. But one of the constant experiences that I've seen is the need for us to address systemic inequities that exist in our country by race. So we know that regardless of income and education, that inequities in general across the board are impacting communities of color, Black, Indigenous, Latinx populations, and that those inequities persist. And so as I think about the drivers of those inequities, the root causes, we know that we have to address race and racism head on, and I'm really firmly committed to doing that.
Absolutely. So I'll note that we actually interviewed you in early 2020, but by the time you were hired, we were technically working remotely thanks to the pandemic. So how was it coming to work with an organization trying to meet your fellow employees over the phone or with Zoom?
Yeah, everyone has been very gracious and supportive. And it's been great to connect with people virtually and to use the technology to make the connections. It's much quicker to make meetings and to host meetings. But we know that there is so much that's lost when you can't connect in person, right? And the work of racial equity in many ways is about relationship building. It's about establishing trust and repairing broken relationships, working to redress historical harm and healing community trauma. And all of that takes time. And we're living in a time of immense change. Our world has changed because of a pandemic and racial unrest, and our lives are so different than they were a year ago. So I'm appreciative of this awakening, which has allowed me to kind of slow down and juggle all of the new demands and be more mindful and intentional about my work and our shared commitment to advancing racial equity.
And, as you mentioned, not long after you joined us, we were in the midst of civil unrest, touched off by multiple law enforcement shootings and beatings of unarmed Black men, the destruction of Confederate statues, marches and protests going on all across our local area and our nation. Was it fortuitous that you joined Durham County at this time?
Well, I always like to say that everything is in perfect divine order. So I don't believe my joining the county in this moment is an accident. There's always been and will continue to need to be a focus for us to keep our hope and our vision alive of living in a fair and just multiracial democratic society. And we have to work together to dismantle all forms of structural and institutional racism, including in our criminal legal system. In the United States, we see that our Black and Latinx people are 5 to 7 times more likely to encounter law enforcement than whites. And I saw an immense urgency, as you did over the summer, to tackle these issues head on in a groundswell of intergenerational, multicultural people, individuals that took to the streets to speak out against racism. And while most of our efforts are focused on institutional racism, we realize that in order to recognize our dream, we have to really work individually to make sure that we show up and do the work and start with, what it's going to take to become truly become anti-racist. So we must remember that, racism is most insidious in all of its forms. And these are the wheels that keep turning without any actions on the part of any one individual per se.
Mm-hmm. So please tell us in general terms, what's the mission of racial equity?
Well, racial equity is about eliminating disproportionalities based on race and improving life outcomes for all groups. We'll achieve equity by focusing on the systems and institutions that historically have perpetuated racist policies, like the construction of 147, right, which decimated the historic Haiti community.
Mm-hmm.
So in short, we're seeking to become an anti-racist jurisdiction, and we're working across the enterprise to advance this mission.
So please describe Durham County's racial equity goals.
Well, our racial equity goals are to really work on normalizing racial equity, right? So when you go back to the definition, in order for us to really be able to eliminate those disproportionalities and improve outcomes, we have to look across all of our service areas for where that's showing up. So that means understanding our data and understanding who's most impacted by inequities. We have to deepen our engagement with communities who are most impacted in these areas so that they're part of and driving in many ways the solutions in terms of the policy change, the program and practice solutions that we want to see. And we know that we need continuous collective learning and training and development in this area so that we can educate ourselves and educate others. So a lot of it is normalizing, organizing, and operationalizing our efforts so that we can galvanize others to really contribute to this movement to advance racial equity in government.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Now, I recall that you engaged our employees in racial equity visioning sessions to help begin to think about our values and more. Can you touch on that a little bit? And I know we're working to develop a racial equity action plan.
Yeah, so one of our starting points as a jurisdiction was to determine what is going to be our role in advancing racial equity. How do we make racial equity part of the fiber of our work across departments? How can we build on the foundational trainings? Because Durham County had done a lot of trainings to educate staff on racial equity. So how can we build on that? Many of the staff who took training were asking, what can I do next? What is my call to action? And we know we're not starting from scratch. There's been a lot of great work that's happening already. So we do need to know, however, what we're talking about when we say we, Durham County, are focused on racial equity. So we did a baseline survey assessment and engaged staff in these visioning sessions to better understand our common goal and vision in the work. And all of that input is going to help shape our action plan as we move forward. The visioning sessions were small group discussions that were led by employees so that we could get to those common definitions and get to that common vision. And also to understand the accountability. What is it going to take for Durham County to be accountable to its work? So I've learned so much from my colleagues about what we value. And I think that the time is now, right, for us to shift our culture to really embrace our commitment and serve our community.
Mm-hmm. So how can the community be a part of our racial equity initiatives?
Well, help us inform our work, help us to stay accountable, get involved in the different departmental initiatives, give us your suggestions, right? This is the kind of work where we ask first and then we act. So let us know what your experiences are so we can better understand how race and racism are driving some of the inequities that you might face, you might experience or be witness to. And then start in your own, where you are now, in your own home, in your place of worship, in your workplace, in your schools, and ask, how is racism operating here? Have multicultural dialogue with others so we can better understand each other and be authentic about that. Examining points of privilege and bias and speaking up, and think about history, think about how we got here and learn more about the contemporary forms of inequity that continue to impact all of us.
Yeah. So who are your partners in this work? I know you have a peer at the city of Durham, and also Durham County is a member of GARE, Government Alliance on Race and Equity. How do you all collaborate?
Yes, great question. So I have a peer at the City of Durham, Sharon Williams, who's the equity lead, and I work closely with her. And also have a peer at DPS, Dr. Kevin Bullock, who runs the equity office there. There's so much great work happening. The City of Durham assembled a racial equity task force a few years back, and they produced a comprehensive report this past summer that gives a really nice roadmap for addressing inequities across our systems. And our membership to GARE has really afforded us to be part of a national network of jurisdictions, over 300 jurisdictions that are committed to advancing racial equity. So Durham County, the City of Durham, our neighboring jurisdictions across the state, we became part of the North Carolina GARE cohort in 2019. And that really afforded us an opportunity to work on building our capacity to do racial equity work. And I'm really thankful for our core team here at Durham County that's been part of that process, because we know no one person can do this work alone.
Absolutely. Well, Kweli, we're about out of time. Is there a phone number to call or a website where citizens can get more information about your work?
Yes, please reach out to me. My number is 984-297-2514. And my email is krhenry@deconc.gov. I'd love to hear from you.
Excellent. Well, it's been my pleasure to speak with you today, and I want to sincerely thank you for your great work.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate your support.
Well, that wraps up today's show. Thank you all so much for joining us. We'll see you next time on In Touch with Durham County. Cheers.